At the center of the universe, at the border between the light and the dark, stands Castle Grayskull. For countless ages, the heroes of Grayskull have defended the universe against the forces of evil. Walk through the Hall of Living Pictures and learn the history and mystery of the masters of the universe. Dive deep into the mythology of Eternia, Etheria, and more. For those who know the stories of Grayskull will come the power to be supreme, the power to be all-knowing, the power to be Legends of Grayskull.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 53 of Legends of Grayskull, the fan podcast where we discuss the history, the mystery, the magic, and mythology of He-Man, She-Ra, Eternia, Etheria, Norador, Primus, New Adventures, Old Adventures, Golden Book, Ladybird, UK Annuals, comics, mini-comics, anything and everything you can think of with that He-Man, She-Ra, Masters of the Universe, Princess of Power, that Mattel logo down in the corner. I'm Matthew Duch, here again with Sean Scavarna. Sean, how are we doing today?
I'm impressed, man. You put some passion into that this time. I could feel it through my headphones.
We are here today to celebrate the Motu. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen, sister.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah, brother.
Oh, he's got the spirit here, ladies and gentlemen. He's got the spirit. Speaking of which,
somebody's gonna sue us.
Isn't Coming to America 2 supposed to be out soon?
I think it's March.
Oh, we got all the way till March still?
Yeah, it's close to my daughter's birthday, so it's like the middle of March, if I remember right.
Oh, wait, then. God, I love that movie. So much.
Everything old is new again. This is proof right there.
I don't care. Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall and Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy. Sign me up. Sign me up.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy. That was one of the few nostalgia kicks where it's like between that one and Cobra Kai, it's like, I'm just grinning from ear to ear going, look at that. I'm still relevant. I'm 42, but I'm still relevant.
It all comes down to what we said. I just want to see good stories. And if it involves characters that I, know from childhood, great. If it involves new characters, great. The key is good stories. So, but Coming to America 2 looks like it's going to be good. Still haven't watched Cobra Kai. So,
all right. Can't say anything then, huh?
No.
Well, Johnny's in it.
Johnny is in it. Actually, quite a few
Johnny
people.
Lawrence is in it.
Elizabeth Shue, I heard, she came back for at least an episode or something, and so yeah, I've heard bits and pieces.
I won't say anything because I know how you won't. For our audience, ladies and gentlemen, this man Matthew Duch will not even watch trailers when he does not want to be spoiled, so I can't say a word.
Yeah. No, I really.
So when the Revelation trailer hits, it's you and me, people. It's not going to be Matt involved in this. He's going to be like, I'm not watching a thing until it actually premieres on Netflix, and I'll respect, but I'm also going to be like, man, we've waited so long, you can't even watch the trailer.
Yeah, it'll be tough. And it's not that, there are some trailers I watch. Some things I just can't help. A hard thing nowadays is they release the trailers so early now. Yeah, it seems. So you're kind of stuck, like, a trailer's out there, you avoid it for a few weeks, but then it's like, oh, I still got 2 months. So then finally, sometimes I break down and watch it. Or I've done it where I watch it, but I don't have sound on. So I'm just seeing the images and not the necessarily any of the plot or because sometimes the delivery or the sound effects or something can give stuff away too. So, but I like to go in as pure as possible.
What's funny is because of 2020 going all sideways and pineapple and whatever you want to call it. Yesterday was a good refresher for me and my kids, because my kids have really loved. I got the Xbox 360 back out a couple months ago. They've been enjoying gaming on that. And I had the Ghostbusters video game on there, and my kids actually eat that thing up. They love going in, and it's spooky. So it's like there's these moments where they're like,
Yeah.
"Daddy, can you play this part?" So I jump in and I help them, and we get through the scary bits together. But I was like, "Hey, do you remember they're doing a new movie this year? It's supposed to be out last year.
I forgot about
but it's
that.
coming out this year." Afterlife, and
Ghostbusters
then yesterday
Part
morning,
3, Stranger Things. Yes.
basically, and I played the trailer for them after breakfast 5 times in a row yesterday, and all of us were cheering every single time that Ecto 1 showed up and everything. So that movie in particular and Black Widow are the two where I feel the worst, because 2020 just obliterated them off the calendar. And thankfully we have this year that, we're looking forward to some good stuff too. But you said, the trailer comes out so early. Well, that came out last year, like before all this stuff.
Now
and I've been waiting and waiting.
That I did watch the Ghostbusters trailer. And I will put a caveat in there, because, and this isn't to say I don't like Ghostbusters, but the less I care about a movie, the easier it is for me to watch the trailer. Like, I care more about Masters of the Universe, so I'll be less inclined to watch a trailer for it.
Gotcha.
And meanwhile, I love Ghostbusters, but to me, Ghostbusters never became a franchise per se. And part of that's me, because I've only seen the movies. I'm sure I watched the cartoon as a kid, but I never really got into it, and I've never watched it as an adult, or a teenager. I've never gotten back into it. So to me, Ghostbusters is more like, here's the movies. They were great, but it's not something that I've even thought about the universe much or anything like that, like I do with Masters. So that trailer I did sit down and watch. It was decent. I like Paul Rudd. I'm worried about the kitty angle. But the biggest thing, and I think I told you this at the time when it came out, at the end of it, when they show the Ecto 1 and it fires up and it runs out of the barn, why they did not have the "Who You Gonna Call" theme swell up at that point. Up until that point, I was hooked, and I'm like, you guys, it's so obvious right there as they're turning the key and it's firing up. You just do the and then hit the it just hit it in full gear as it cranks out of the barn there.
Sure, and I can understand that, but for me, I like the way that it was done, because it was basically a first trailer.
Yeah.
So, they're going to save that theme for the next trailer to really blow the roof off the joint.
No, I think you need to blow it off the joint, especially following the female Ghostbusters. I think you need to hook everybody there. Be like, look, don't worry, we got this now.
I can't fight you on that one, but it had enough references, and it wasn't nearly as kooky crazy with the comedy. It looked like they just wanted to tell, here's a legit story. And that's part of why I'm excited for it, because if anything, that first movie, because I've seen the first movie how many times? My kid will go to the Stay Puft scene every day, and he'll watch the and for me, I'm like, we're watching Stay Puft again. Okay, we're watching Stay Puft again, and there he is coming through New York. But my son is absolutely he's all about this, and for me, I like it when you hear the siren and you hear the proton thrower. That's enough for me to just go, oh, I'm home.
Right.
I'm home already. It made me happy with that much even. So I'm excited. I'm excited for both those movies, because Black Widow, I miss her. I want to see her again on the big screen. So
do you think
Scarlett Johansson in my face is never a bad thing? So
no. Shut.
Hey, if she listens, my number is. Anyway, back on track.
One last question: yes or no? Obviously, Harold Ramis has passed. Do you think we'll see a ghost Egon in the movie?
All right, here's something I thought about. I think I'll lean to maybe after yesterday, because they have that moment with Paul Rudd opening the trap, in the classroom, and then it closes really quick. And there's a part of me that's going, what if there is something going on where they have like, because Belushi was Slimer was Belushi in the first movie, because Belushi died. He was going to play Peter Venkman originally.
Right.
And right as they were working on the script, he passed away. So then they're like, well, that's going to be our Belushi. It's
Right.
like a tribute to him. Well, it's like, maybe they'll do that with Ramis in this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already, I'm guessing those were his grandkids in the trailer.
I think so too. I think it was pretty heavily implied that would be the link.
The little girl, especially those glasses,
and even the boy,
dark hair and everything.
I forget the exact lines now, but there were definitely. I think it's pretty heavily implied there, and I think definitely yes. I think we will see a Ghost Egon, and I think I think it'll be even more than like a Slimer. I think he'll come at a pivotal moment to help
be cool.
win the day, because obviously this is something he set in motion, with the well and everything else. So.
I'm excited.
Spoiler alerts if you guys haven't seen the trailer yet, I guess.
Well, it's been about a year since it was released, so hey. Hopefully it reignites people who forgot that it's out there. Like, you're like, yeah, that's right, that was released last year.
It was. Yeah,
So,
I'll drop a link down below. Go check it out if you haven't. And and really, what's the statute of limitations on spoilers? Because I think I post okay, here we go, spoilers for stuff that we're talking about that came out in 1983. So, I mean, if I'm going to do a spoiler for DC miniseries, I think I need to do a spoiler after the fact for Ghostbusters.
Well,
Ghostbusters, Stranger Things, Part 3.
I jumped on the Mandalorian bandwagon in the last few months, and I know
the most recent season. FYI.
If you post anything online the next day, you might as well consider yourself a jerk or whatever, or whichever term you want to use for that.
Yeah,
but,
you hear that? You hear that, Rodriguez?
Friend of the show is causing some trouble, huh?
He's trying to do it with WandaVision now. He keeps posting these little one-liners like, "Oh, I'm not doing anything." It's like, darn you.
Yeah. His posts on Facebook are interesting because it's almost like, what are we talking about? It's very. He knows what he's talking. Here's this thing, and you're like, wait a minute, what, huh? But it's like, hey, it works.
Mandalorian, Wonder Woman 84. He's starting on WandaVision now. Darn it, man! Give me a minute.
Yeah?
Some of us have lives.
I did WandaVision pretty quickly the other night because that was only like 20 minutes an episode. So it was like boom, 40 minutes. I'm in and out. Good.
There was playoffs last night, Sean. I did start the first episode, but
you know me. I don't follow the foot with the ball.
The football won out. So.
No, Jarrell, the baseball player. Anyway.
All right, so let's move on here. Let's jump right into our review for the day. So today we are talking about, this is an interesting one. This came out 2009. This was discovered. And special thanks here, I want to thank Adam McCombs from Battle Ram blog for not only refreshing my memory of it, but also posting up all of the images associated with it, which we are going to use on the show today. Thank you, Adam. I got a link down below. Check out his page. He's got a wonderful blog. He goes over a lot of Masters of the Universe history, deep dives on characters, concepts, anything and everything you can think of. So check that out. So what we're talking about here is Whitman Publishing. Back in the 80s, they were tasked with coming up with an origin story for He-Man and, the whole Masters of the Universe line. Very similar, I think more similar to what DC did with their 83 miniseries. Adam feels the same way on his blog, that this seems to be after the first 4 mini comics, but when they were trying to figure out where they go from here, and what would eventually come out with the DC miniseries that we've already reviewed on the show here. They also had Whitman take a stab at it, and they came out with they set the storyline for 4 issues that would introduce this origin story for the world. The pencils are done by Adrian Gonzalez. He was a Filipino comic book artist who also did the pencils for the Golden Book, The Sunbird Legacy.
Mhm.
Whitman also is famous for the pop-up game, which I own. If you remember the one where the board pops up and you got He-Man and the Eagle and everything. That was also done by Whitman
Yeah.
Publishing, who also owned Golden Books. So I think this led into them doing all those Golden Books. So Sean, what was your first experience with this?
It was the other night when you told me about it. I did not know this. This for me was like the coolest deep cut to find because I never knew there was a legit attempt at this is the origin before Filmation took it over. And the thing was
it almost.
this,
Let's clarify. It almost was. Almost was.
But it was their attempt.
It was there.
At
It was
is
Whitman's
what I'm
attempt.
trying to say. Yeah, and we have the basic Alcala and Don Glut origin in the mini comics, which doesn't really give you a huge amount other than okay, he leaves his tribe and wanders off to go into Eternia, the rest of the planet, and all that. And in this one, it's like okay, this is not the origin I would have ever expected for He-Man in any way, shape, or form. So I was sitting there the other night going like, this is crazy.
But
like this is it's so starkly different than anything that we've come to know.
But
Masters.
also oddly familiar at the same time. Like
it is, but for different reasons. It's not because it's Masters. It's because so there's some influence in this that Roger Sweet was talking about, and there's some this, and
basically setting the stage. I think you can see that clear point in time after reading through, and you read through the whole thing, correct? Everything on the blog. I mean, I think you can see that point in time in about 1982, where Mattel's like, okay, well, we'll release the first wave. We had those mini comics before. Obviously, they were. I mean, we know they weren't 100% with the story because they would end up changing it. So it seems like this point in time they went to Whitman and they went to DC and they said, what can you do with this? And you can see the two forks in the road, and they ended up going the DC route, which would bring in Prince Adam and King Randor, Queen Marlena, and a lot of that. Excuse me. But they just as easily could have gone the Whitman route, which we'll go over today here. Honestly, for me, I actually remember when these pages were up for auction. They came up for auction in about 2009. And I remember following the thread on He-Man.org about them. And I thought that they were completely made up. I thought this was somebody's, like, just maybe a fan made them or whatever, like, and is trying to pass them off like they're original. Because it is so starkly different. And the other thing was, at the time, they were saying that this was a proposal for the New Adventures of He-Man. Like around that time, at the end of the 80s, when they were talking Masters of Space and New Adventures and Skeletine and all that. When these pages first came out, everyone was saying, oh, this is what New Adventures could have been. And reading through here, reading through them at the time, I go, this couldn't have been. Like, you're missing too many key components. But then when you stop and think about it and you put it back in the early 80s, it's like, well, that makes perfect sense. And here's the pop-up game I was talking about. I actually had it in the drawer right
I never had that. The thing that got me, like the Battle Ram blog, he posted the inside the mini comic where it showed the ad for this.
Yeah.
And then they also had the
giant
was it a coloring book or the giant
like the
and
poster
both of
book,
which
poster coloring book, which I want to know if that ever actually came out. I have never seen that before.
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to say. As a kid, my mom and I always had our eye out for anything with Masters on it because I was so into the brand.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that at all. I've never seen that when I was a kid. And then The poster book, I know how much I wanted that thing because I'm like, that's one of the few things I needed out
Yeah.
of the initial offerings. I never ever knew
And I've
if that
and
thing
I've
hit or
never
not.
seen it come up, and I think that would be pretty popular if it came up. I mean, that sounds amazing. A poster size
Mm-hmm.
coloring book, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
14 by 20. You know,
Yeah.
and
I
which,
would have just laid on that page to color
well, I'm
it
assuming, and
back in
again,
those days.
Golden Book came out with those giant books of heroic and evil warriors. So I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the same size it would have been. Especially as a
Yep.
kid, that would have been amazing. But yeah, the
Exactly.
pop up game's fun. It's again, it's very, everything Whitman did was very early inspired. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's an early He-Man. Let me see if I can pop it up. Right now. That was kind of lucky. It was right behind me. Yeah, you just get the board. This is actually going to show pretty nicely from the looks of it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Holy man, the giant eagle. See, I
And
miss this. I miss this era.
Grayskull, and you got there's
Yeah.
Skeletor. He's on a volcano. This is pretty cool. Like, I forget how exact, but like, you go and he'll move, and then he'll open holes, and if you fall through the holes, you got to go back spaces. It's like a little
Nice.
trap. Yeah, early Grayskull in the background there. So this is kind of the time that this is all set in, this early Wave 1 concept stuff. Look, Skeletor's even got the bat on his chest colored in
Yeah.
like the Lords of Power, you know.
Lords of Power. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a very cool, and it's literally pop. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So
Love it.
that I just acquired a couple years ago. That's I've been looking for it for a while. It's hard to find them in good shape too, where the pop ups aren't busted off. So
Sure. I never had that. I had the 3D one where you could you had the
this,
the clear plastic and you could move it around. I spent
oh
hours
yeah,
playing that thing, and my mom hated it because she's like, "We're doing this again." Yeah, because it's an awesome game.
you can with a little luck you can win that thing like really quick though. I think one time I played with my son and he beat me in like 3 turns. It was like, okay, because
Uh,
there's one pivot point where if you pivot twice, it's like you're right at the last row. It's like
yep. I think I figured it out back in those days too, and that's part of why my mom gave up trying to play because I couldn't get the other kids to play.
yeah,
But my mom was stuck at home with me, so we'd play it, and like she let me win at some
right.
points because she's just like, I got something else I got to do. So yeah,
I,
but I love that game. That was
if
fun.
we ever wind up in the same room at the same time, Sean, we're gonna bust out the pop up game. We're gonna bust
Let's
out
do
Battle
it.
for Eternia.
I'm cool. Let's do
we're
it.
gonna do a Masters game night. Um,
I'm good. All
we'll
about
live stream that,
it.
folks. But back to the point at hand here. Okay, so we got this Whitman
Yep.
publishing origin story. I, like an idiot, didn't even try to go for any of these auctions. Kick myself now. Because and you know what, and it just, it was just, I felt it might be fake and whatever. It didn't interest me as much.
hmm
And again, it's another thing. It's kind of like New Adventures. It's like, even if it is true, that's not my He-Man. So what does it mean to me? Um,
hmm
but it's a masterpiece. So let's jump right over here. If you're on YouTube with us, I am gonna throw the pages up here as big as I can. If not, go ahead. Like I said, click the link down below. You can head over to Battleram blog and check them out in their full scale. Um, and let us know what you think. So we're gonna run through it here. So yeah, so we start off here on the page here. We've got a shepherd who we don't learn his name, but he's walking with a girl named Shalda. Talking, but basically he's in love with Shalda, but she's bound, kind of engaged to Tez, and we find out that this scrawny wimp is He-Man, which the other villagers call him that as a mocking thing because he's like this. He's the runt of the litter. He's scrawny. He's weak. Everybody else we see here as Tez and his hoodlums show up as He-Man's making the moves on Shalda. Yeah, they're all the buff Eternian physique that we're used to, And He-Man is it's the old Charles Atlas thing. It's like the
Oh yeah.
scrawny getting the sand kicked into you at the beach. Like Tez wants to fight him. Excuse me, sorry guys.
Mm-hmm.
Tez wants to fight him, and one of his buddies sticks a sword in the ground, like buries it deep into the ground. He's like, yeah, He-Man, if you can lift that out, you can't, like, you'll get a free swing on Tez, and He-Man's trying, he can't even pull the sword out of the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, all I wanted to see was the Charles Atlas guy standing at the end of this page, like they did on the pages in the comics, because it's like Roger Sweet said, that was a huge influence on the idea of his version of He-Man and everything, or his take on it. And it's like, man, they just went right for it on this page.
They did.
It's just lifted it right from there.
And I just love the ominous in the last panel here. You just see these shapes in the background over He-Man's shoulder, and then the next page is a double spread, and it's Skeletor riding a dragon with demons following on dragons behind him. The sky turns dark, and he starts raining fire down on everybody. And it says, Chapter 1, Shadows on the Sun. Now that's Skeletor. I mean, 100% to me.
Yeah, it's I don't know. The thing about this is I felt like there was a starkness to how the story was even told, because one page we're dealing with one thing, then the next page is an all-out dragon invasion with Skeletor leading it. It's like, where the hell did this come from? The last page it was, here's this little shepherd and here's Shalda, and all this, and boom.
It's the early roaming Skeletor. We'll find out that he's on a quest for that. He's got one half of the power sword. He wants the other, and coming. Let's jump ahead. And so Skeletor and company just start tearing everything up, and they kill Shalda right before He-Man's eyes. Like, that's it. Like, and that gives, but like you said, it gives He-Man the strength to pull that sword out of the ground. All of a sudden, he was struggling with it, and just his rage is just like, he pulls it right out. Seeing the woman he loves struck down by dragon fire. And I think they do. I love this shot here with the three panels of He-Man's face. It's very much a He-Man haircut for those of you who can't see it, but it's a very skinny face, very, very soft features, right? But then as first he's in shock, then there's some tears coming out of his eyes, and then the last, it's a close-up of his face, and he goes to rage. And by God, that's the He-Man face. That is that He-Man toy face right there. So that's awesome on the part of the artist, how he went from a meek shepherd to He-Man just in the face. His body's obviously, he's still a scrawny wimp, but in the face, you're like, you see that He-Man that's going to come forth later.
Yeah. Yeah, I was I was probably more shocked by the fact that within the first 4 pages of this thing, there's already death. Because that doesn't happen typically in Masters. You don't see it as often as other things. So the fact that here's this origin story, and we're starting it off with a death of a character already to tell He-Man's origin of all people, I'm like, okay, this is, again, not the kind of an origin I would have expected. So it's like, okay, all bets are off. Right. Where's this going?
Yeah, and Skeletor shortly lays waste to all Tez and all of the bullies. He's just striking people down left and right, and he hits He-Man. Not does he hit him, but the demons shoot arrows into his back as well. Like, I mean, that's just. And Skeletor, a great shot here. He-Man's leaning on Skeletor, like he's trying to fight him, but he's got no strength left. He's been hit by Skeletor. He's got 3 arrows in his back, and Skeletor just standing there, just not like whatever, like you look at a bug.
Well, it reminds me, going to Transformers the movie. It reminds me of like when Megatron his laid waste to all the Autobots on the shuttle,
Yeah.
and Ironhide's like grabbed. No,
Yeah.
it's such heroic nonsense. It's kind of the
Yeah.
same deal here, which
Hey.
when you put the villain in that perspective, it always makes them feel a lot more threatening and dangerous.
Exactly, and that's it. This is fully the demon Skeletor. He is on a quest
Yep.
for the power sword. Everything else is beneath him.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so next page he's talking to his demons. He finds out that he's trying to find the. He's just searching blindly. He has no reason to even believe that the other half is in this village. He's literally traversing Eternia, burning villages to the ground and looking through their rubble. Maybe the other half of the power sword will be there. Like,
Mm-hmm. Well, he's living up to the name, Lord of Destruction.
Yeah.
I mean and it does. This is why this version of Skeletor is always like this version is always going to be my favorite because he is supposed to be a force of evil, a force to be reckoned with, and that's why 2000X is right there with it because he's very similar, even though the origin is a little off.
Right.
But I like this take on it because when I was a kid, it was like this should be the embodiment of evil.
Yes, and
He-Man's supposed to be the embodiment of good,
And that's what we're getting here. Just he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
They find He-Man still alive somehow. His body's hanging on, and Skeletor interrogates him, and He-Man spits in his face, literally spits in his skull, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And all the demons want to kill him, and Skeletor says that'd be too merciful. He's so ticked off that He-Man would defy him as he's dying that he won't even kill him right here because that would be a mercy. He's gonna leave him for the wolves to come and eat. I mean and then he just takes off.
Such a nice guy.
Such a nice guy. And luckily, just as the wolves do show up as night falls, and He-Man's trying everything he can to get the strength to fight them off. But luckily, here's Man at Arms.
Yeah, as quoted by Adam. Yeah, there you go.
And this shot here, the early concept looking battle ram, the very conquistador Man at Arms, cool gun he's got, high tech weaponry. It just looks great. And I know on Adam on the Battle Ram blog even speculated that's possible Fred Carrillo may have done the inks on this. We don't know for sure, but that Battle Ram there is very, very similar to Carrillo's Battle Ram in the Giant Picture book. So, and they did work together. Sunbird Legacy was pencils by Gonzalez and inks by Carrillo. So it's quite possible that Carrillo was already working on the property here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the line work is pretty similar. But I mean, granted, I'm not going to be an expert and say, oh, it's definitely, but there is definitely a feeling of what I knew from Sunbird Legacy as a kid that's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is another team up between the two artists.
Right. And, and I should have pointed out at the beginning here, excuse me, there are definitely pages missing in here. It's not terrible, but you can tell there probably would have been some filler pages here or there. So then that seemingly would end chapter 1. And chapter 2 is Moon Spinner, where we're taken to Eternia's capital city, Monarch, to see the healer Moon Spinner. And it starts off here very Arabian almost looking city there. Lots of spires and, definitely very, very polished. They were trying to contrast with the shepherd looking village before. And Man at Arms.
Civilization.
Yeah, civilization, exactly. Man at Arms takes him to Moon Spinner, the healer, trying to save his life. I'm gathering basically just to get information. It seems like Man at Arms has been tracking Skeletor's destruction, trying to figure out what he's up to, trying to figure out a way to stop him. And it seems like Man at Arms was tracking him. And I got the feeling that this is probably the first survivor that Man-at-Arms has found.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very curious and very much wanting to keep him alive. Moonspinner, they talk back and forth about. Yeah, and I'm just giving you the gist here, guys. Check it out. There is a really, really deep story here. I did want to stop for a minute and make sure I get the lines on this right, because there's this little uh, prophecy that Moonspinner talks about, which I think would have been really, really relevant. And you can tell they're set up that same kind of early world where it's like there used to be an advanced race of with technology and everything, and something happened and they're trying to refine it. Because Man-at-Arms even says that he has no faith, only hopes and dreams of half forgotten legends, fables and fiction. Skeletor chases the wind, nothing more. So even Man-at-Arms doesn't even necessarily believe that Skeletor just chasing some old fantasies about power swords and
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if it's Grayskull here. Yeah, okay, here we go. So Moonspinner's trying to think of this old prophecy. So it's and this is his exact quote, guys. Champion born of fire and ice, dragon's flame and blood red snow. Something something will join the swords and make them whole. Grayskulls called the castle keep, with ancient secrets dark and deep. Something or other, never free, save it to the king who wields the key. I really like that. I really
Yeah.
and the main reason I like it is because of the something somethings. Like, this is such an old prophecy that they don't even remember it all. This was made so long ago that part of it's just faded to the winds of history. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that would have been key. I don't think that was throwaway. It seems like a lot of planning was put into that, especially in the something somethings, where that
Mm-hmm.
would have held the key to everything. But just the
Yeah.
parts about Dragon's Flame and Blood Red Snow and a champion born of fire and ice, and, it's making them think that this little shepherd here plays a bigger role than they can imagine. And it's
Mm-hmm.
worth the shot. It's worth the shot to try and see.
Yeah. I'm a fan of that kind of stuff because I mean anything that gives any kind of like a
Yeah,
history or something along those lines, and in Masters, it's one of the perfect places to do stuff like that. So and to hear that version, it's like okay, this is leading you down a different path, but you might have the same outcome.
yeah, and
You're just gonna have maybe a different version or whatever.
And I think this was going to be very episodic. And can you imagine finding out like little bits and pieces of that prophecy as they're going and filling in the blanks? Maybe they fill it in wrong at one point and do. I mean, I don't like that kind of stuff. Just opens up so many doors in storytelling
Yeah.
for me. Um, as they're chasing
It,
the legend,
this whole era this is what captivates me about the brand, but it also what makes it frustrating at times because there's a lot of good storytelling you could have
Yeah,
doing something like this, and especially the episodicness like you're talking about. I was waiting for that on the show
yeah,
and doing like they're going after this legacy or this prophecy and all this kind of stuff. And it's like when the show came out, it didn't go to any of these kind of lengths. It did its own
right,
thing. And I always felt like it undercut a lot of the good meat of this is something you could also do with this brand. And these things, like these pages obviously have never been they've never seen the light of day for the fandom
right.
other than on a Battle Ram blog, obviously.
Mhm.
But it's like, man, this is the kind of stuff that would be so fun
Yeah.
to show on either a comic book or a cartoon. So it's fun to unearth this kind
Now
of stuff and go like, I was right. You could do it. It would be awesome.
these next couple of pages, I'm really curious on your take on.
Okay.
So now we got, Moonspinner figures, well, he's gonna die anyways. Let's try something. And they head down to this deep part of the castle, and they pass a little placard that says "Authorized person only beyond this point." And they come out into this room that's just full of technology. I mean, the computers and rays and just everything. And
very Kirby-esque looking.
Yes, very much
Like Jack Kirby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they end up placing He-Man into a machine called the Life Mold. And it's that early, with the technology's all kind of forgotten, and Moonspinner's trying to remember how to use this thing, and it doesn't want to start at first, and it gets it firing up, and then it ends up, they smell burning and sizzling, and it starts on fire, and Man-at-Arms, busts it open to get He-Man out, and we are treated to actually chapter 2 ends with like them looking at the burning thing, and then chapter 3, a champion born, opens right up with Man-at-Arms and Moonspinner standing over our He-Man. He has been transformed. He is now the muscular, buff alpha male that we all know and love. So
yeah,
as a Captain America fan, Sean, how do you like this?
This is where, like, this whole story is it is the subverting my expectations of He-Man, because like I said, I never would have pictured a murder to be something to start a He-Man origin with Shalda getting murdered at the beginning with the dragons, and then out of nowhere we have this. Well, we can rebuild him. Give him the super soldier serum. And I can almost hear the shepherd in there. All of it's on fire, and you can hear Chris Evans. Wait, I can do this. From Captain America: First Avenger.
Yeah.
It is so weird as an origin at this point for me. I'm like, I was fine with. I wasn't like thrilled about the idea of it's like Tarzan. He leaves the jungle as a kid, but it kind of started you on that. Well, here's this primitive being coming out and becoming a hero. In Filmation, it's okay. He's a prince, and then he gets the sword and he becomes a hero. This, it's just like Google science stuff. Boom.
Yeah.
and it's not any take on He-Man I would have ever expected.
Yeah. No, I agree. But for me personally, this actually works better than the Tribe. Because of the transformation, I think it's easier for, even though this is a permanent transformation. They have like you said, they've rebuilt him. They have super soldiered him.
Yeah.
But it works for me because to me, He-Man is all about that transforming. You can be the young prince, the weakling, and you can get the power. Everything about Masters of the Universe to me is power. And that's, especially this early stuff. It was all, the working title was Lords of Power. It was all about getting the power of Grayskull, the most powerful man in the universe. It was all about being the best, the most powerful. And that's what this is. It's like, okay, there's this young boy who was dying, and, they gave him a second chance. He is transformed. He can get his revenge. He can avenge his fallen love, and he can make a difference in the world. So I think that ties into the themes for me better than I'm buff and I left my tribe to wander the planet.
Yeah. And I, even as a kid, that one really wasn't quite as compelling, but I just kind of accepted it because there wasn't anything until Filmation hit.
Right.
And granted, no, the DC did the Atom and all that stuff too, obviously, and I knew about that. Yeah,
we're just saying, this is the first one, transformation that wasn't Filmation-esque.
Yeah. Yes, and I appreciate that they did something to do that, because I do like the idea, at least, and I loved it about the Captain America movie, where no matter what you do through that movie, you look at Steve and you see in his eyes here's that kid that was in the alley getting his ass kicked at the beginning of the movie, and here he is able to do something about it. But you never lose track of that
he's the kid.
You know,
he's that kid from Queens.
He's the kid from Brooklyn.
Sorry,
he's from
Spider-Man's
Brooklyn.
from Queens.
Spider-Man's Queens.
My bad.
And I love that about how Evans portrayed that character. So I like this in here where he comes from like that. But then I think the part that trips me up is the sci-fi part, because to me, Masters has elements of sci-fi, but the sci-fi is less than the fantasy and the sorcery, because it's got that sword and sorcery thing more, and the sci-fi is kind of like, here's little details within it to give you that it's more than just that, so like having this be what saves them makes me just go like, I wish they would have took him to like a healer or something and have it be like a magical or a sorcery version of it instead, and then to save him, like he ends up having that because of the spell or whatever.
But
whereas it's like, this is very Marvel Comics to me in this way.
Yeah, I yes and no. But here again, though, you can tell the technology is limited because He-Man was living in a village that was very much just a village, So obviously the technology is only in like the capital cities, the big cities, and it's unreliable. I mean, this thing burned. This thing smashed. It's destroyed. We can't make another He-Man. So I like that. Because even that came up in the Marvel universe. It's like, well, can't we just make more super soldiers? Well, yeah, you can. But this was kind of like this is it. There was this one machine left. It burned up. You're our guy now, and that helps. Like, to me, a lot of times in storytelling, advanced technology, if you go advanced enough, is basically magic. They got this one shot off. It worked, and it brought this kid back to life and made him a He-Man, and and now it's not even left around as a plot device later. But it also hints back at the past where maybe they did use this all the time to just crank out, super soldiers constantly,
warriors, super soldiers.
That led to the Great Wars, and it's the whole thing. Like the early Castle Grayskull, the whole point of getting into it was to take over all that technology and the weaponry and everything. Like that's kind of what they're going for in this era. So it works for me here. And we get He-Man wakes up and he's ticked off. He's full of strength and energy, and he's screaming for Shalda. And I'm gonna gloss over these next few pages here, guys. But basically everything that's really fueling him at this point is his hurt and pain from losing Shalda and losing his village. He's shown training. He's shown fighting with Skeletor in the next couple panels, like sparring, which we turn out is just Teela in disguise training him. And we basically, the next is his training montage. I like Teela is very much Teela in this. She's strong, she's confident, good fighter. She's teaching him how to use his strength. And there's some moments between them here where again they are setting up the long game in this comic. Teela and He-Man have some interactions. He-Man just completely ignores her for a long time. Like all he's interested in, he's all in his own head. He's only interested in getting stronger so that he can go slay Skeletor. Like it's all about Shalda. And he does end up opening up a little bit to Teela during training, and you can start to see that friendship / romance kind of blossom. Very mature themes in this, I think. It's not talking down at all. Like I said, they're setting up the romance, the heartbreak. He-Man is like a PTSD victim right now. He's that's all that's on his mind is Shalda and his lost love and everything.
Yeah, and what you just said about, it doesn't talk down. The initial stuff that I got when I was a kid for this, I always felt like it made it that it's serious. This is legit. Like, here's this cool fantasy tale that you can tell using these figures you're getting. Right. So that's why when me being who I am about Masters, when we get into the thing where people are expecting, oh, there should be some comedy, there should be some humor to it, I usually don't enjoy anybody's perspective on that point, because it's like, no, if you go to this stuff, it was like, these are warriors, these are barbarians, these are creatures, monsters, demons, and it's like, that's why when Orko showed up on the show, I was like, seriously, like, I want to see something where here's He-Man having to slay this giant dragon or something,
Right.
and instead it's more, they catered that more towards, let's let the kids have this fun. But when you get stuff like this, it's like, this is what I wanted out of this brand. And now we've gotten into mimes or memes and all that, and it's like, no. And that's why, anybody who's like, well, that's my Skeletor, I'm like, okay, fine,
It's
that's
your
your Skeletor.
Skeletor.
But I got,
He
yeah,
didn't
it's like,
exist,
that's the one.
but that's your Skeletor.
Yeah, and it's like, I'll go back to the original mini comics. I'll go to something like this. I'll go to that EP that we played, the record, and say, that is how I always pictured this stuff, and that's what painted my imagination for what this brand was supposed to be. It never talked down to me when I was a kid, and I enjoyed that for it.
And real quick here, the last chapter, and I don't even know if it's a complete chapter. It might have been complete, it might have not been. It's kind of hard to tell. But chapter 4 is the last one that there are pages for, and that's entitled Battle Cat. So guess what happens in this one? And I actually really like this. I'll flip through the pages right quick here for the guys watching. He-Man comes across this guy, Anan, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically it's like bronco busting. They've got a large cat, and they're all taking bets on who can break him, who can ride him the longest. And you can see he's there's notes on here that he's the cat's supposed to be like beat up with like scars and like he's had a hard life. And He-Man comes along um, and I think it's all going back to that first chapter to He-Man. Like you said, he's still that shepherd from the village. So he sees all these guys just picking on this cat, and he steps in. He stops him from whipping him. Battle Cat, of course, is spoiler alert. This is obviously going to be Battle Cat. Battle Cat attacks He-Man because that's all he knows is just these guys constantly, abusing him and everything. So it's just animal instinct. There's no talking here, nothing. He is a pure fighting tiger. But He-Man actually ends up taming him. He gets on him, and he tames him by showing him love. I mean, he's petting him. That's what calms him down. He pets him. He's telling him, "I'm not going to hurt you." And he takes him to Moonspinner. Moonspinner helps heal him. And once he's healed, Teela and He-Man go to release Battle Cat out in the wild, and you can see that the cat's grateful. He's giving him, little kisses on his face, just like Sean's cats do to him all the time because he loves those little guys. And
jerks.
And He-Man and Teela have a moment, and and Teela's like, "Well, are you really going to release him? He could be, a good pet or a good, steed." I'm sure she's thinking, and we already get another side to He-Man where he says, "No, this is the right thing. Freedom is priceless. Everybody should be free." So you've already got the like we said before, He-Man's got to have these moral values, these pillars that he relates to, and you've already seen it here. He's standing up against bullies. Everything deserves to be free. I mean, this is very much our He-Man, even though it's not, And
I like that part in particular quite a lot, the Battle Cat bit.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, there is part of chapter 5. My apologies, I forgot this. So that's with him releasing Battle Cat into the wild, and him and Teela almost share a kiss, but then he calls her Shalda and kind of shuts that down.
Yeah.
And you can see they're gonna have a complicated relationship. How he's got to get over the past trauma before he can move forward with possibly Teela or anybody else. So they're setting up some stuff here to explore. But then chapter 5 kicks in, and that's Night of the Demons, and we got some similar looking demons to the first chapter, ambushing them with nets, and they're gonna kill them. He-Man is fighting them off. They're overwhelming them, and he tells Teela to run. She's not gonna leave him. Um, and then it ends. The whole thing ends with a surprised look on one of the demons' faces, and that's everything we've got for this. So, um, obviously, I think the thought is that Battle Cat would have heard the noise and come back, and this is where He-Man gets his steed. I think that's a pretty safe assumption there.
Yeah.
That he would have helped turn the tide, and then they would have been the partners that we know and love. So, yeah, that's a story.
Yeah. I like. There's definitely things about it where I'm a little iffy, but
Right.
Granted, here I am at 42 finding out that this happened last week.
Right.
So, I'm just getting used to the idea, but there's more to that story that I'd rather have had as this is canon than not in some ways. Like, especially the Battle Cat bit, there's nothing wrong with having, like, I know everybody loves the cringer to Battle Cat and all that stuff, but for me, it's like, having this cat that was shown all, it's like that. I love that story of this cat was never shown love. He shows it love, and then that bonds to him, and then through that they have this unbreakable bond of I got your back if you got mine, and all that, and it's like that is more the way I'd rather see Battle Cat done than he transforms from a cowardly cowardly tiger into the big Battle Cat. Then.
And if you're gonna take out the by the power of Grayskull, then I think this is and they're just He-Man and Battle Cat. This is a really good way to introduce it. And I liked it. I really did. Like you said, it's oddly familiar yet completely different, and I wouldn't have minded it going this way. I think it's obviously what's inked is very nice. The pencils are very nice. They were treating it with seriousness, even more so I think than maybe even DC ended up doing or Filmation, because just some of the themes that they were including in here, which might have been why Mattel decided to go with DC's pitch instead, because those are some adult themes. I mean, PTSD. He can't get. He's calling Teela the dead girl's name. I mean, that's. I mean. That's something I wouldn't mind seeing now. Seeing that story, that could be a good HBO. Setup.
It could be.
And the last season would be horrible.
Well, maybe not. Who knows? But my biggest problem is always going to be you don't need to talk down to kids to make them enjoy something. My kids can still enjoy something I enjoy. I might get it on a different level than them, but they can still understand things. And on top of that, like you're showing empathy with that story. You're showing empathy on a couple different levels through Man-at-Arms taking the shepherd to get healed because he's the only survivor of that attack. So it's like if it wasn't for Man-at-Arms, none of this would happen. And then when He-Man shows empathy to Battle Cat, now he gained his lifelong steed, like you said, and there's definitely some things in there where it's like kids will still recognize this is a good thing without having to make it kiddie. And that's something that it's sorely lacking the way that they've done it. And I feel like they really watered it down at certain points in the line. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Kids aren't dumb. Kids pick this stuff up. And if you show it in a way where it feels more real to them, it makes it lasting for them to remember these stories because it's affecting, and there's certain ones in Filmation that, they were affecting because they were treated more seriously, like, Tale of Teela or something like that. There's definite, or I'm not Teela, Teela's Quest. Sorry. That one, my mom would sit with me through that one because for her, it was an engaging story to see what they were doing. And it's like that kind of feeling is what I feel in this kind of a story, really.
Yeah, and I would have loved to see where it was going because I think it would have been very episodic. I mean, and you can see it growing with the toy line too. I mean, just the way they set it up, the village, in the remote corner, the capital city of Monarch. They start traveling around and collecting warriors. I could see them running into Mechanic here. Skeletor
Mm-hmm.
hires Triclops to ambush them because they're catching up to him on the path to the. Obviously the first saga would have been the path to the Power Sword.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I think this story here, the Whitman story, I think it would have completely shifted gears. So, it wouldn't have been my biggest gripe about those early stories is, oh, we got the two halves, join. Oh, we got to split them by the end of the story. All right, let's go grab them
Mm-hmm.
again. Let's join them. Okay, let's split them again. I don't think this would have
Mm-hmm.
done that. I think this
Mm-hmm.
first saga would have found two halves. It would have been joined. Okay, now we got to find Grayskull to open Grayskull with the sword. And
Mm-hmm.
so then the next saga is finding Grayskull, and then the next saga could be who has control or who takes control, or maybe Skeletor gets Grayskull, and the
Yeah.
heroic warriors have to get away from him. Like I think this one would have actually had the continuity, the continuation. It wouldn't have just been, reset at the end of the story. It would have
Yeah.
been what happens. And along the
Yeah.
way, as Mattel's releasing new toys, He-Man and Skeletor are gaining new warriors. Until the end
Mm-hmm.
of it, it's basically an all-out war.
Mm-hmm.
The good warriors of Eternia versus the evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to point out when we were going through it. Do you know what man? Did you catch what Man at Arms was the leader of?
No, I didn't catch that. What?
Moonspinner says that Man at Arms is the leader of the Masters of the Universe.
Because I couldn't read when I was reading the blog. I didn't get to read the word bubbles and all that stuff. I was reading the captions that Adam
Okay.
wrote.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I missed that.
Check it out. Yeah, no, when he's introduced to Man at
So
Arms. So
it's setting the stage right there.
here again, it it is not just is definitely not just Mike Young Productions that referred to them as
Mm-hmm.
Masters of the Universe. This
Mm-hmm.
was obviously an idea from early on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Captain. Here it is. Man at Arms here is Captain of the Masters of the Universe, the Protectors of Eternia. They are our
Mm-hmm.
guardians of justice, our defenders against evil.
Nice.
So there's more history of them being the
Yeah.
Masters, even in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I remember the one episode where I said they didn't use it until 2000X, and I have to take that back no matter what now.
Yes.
Mea culpa. There you go.
Golden Book. And, well, I think the other place it showed up in print was in a Golden Book, which again is owned
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
Whitman
Yeah.
Publishing. So
Yeah.
but it goes back to that early state of the line there. And especially if they were in the Lords of Power days, maybe even it definitely could have been, like the Lords of Power would have been the title, and then Masters of the Universe could have been the heroic faction, and that's and they're reading that early material there before Masters became the whole title. That could
Mm-hmm.
definitely be plausible. So
Yeah.
and then in as we always do, let's rank it. So in an Elseworlds ranking style, just on its own merits as a
Mm-hmm.
story, not saying that this is like the definitive origin or anything else, but if this was the story we had gotten, what would you rank it just on its merits alone?
Wow. Because if this was a story we would have gotten, it would have been in my canon since
Right.
the 80s. So
That's what I'm
that
saying.
makes it.
Just don't take
All
it
right.
down because it's different than, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
based on it, what do you think?
I would give this, from what we see of it at this point, I'd give it an 8. I think.
Yep.
I couldn't go full 9 or 10. I'd need more pages because,
Right.
like you said, as the story's developing, there's these moments where you're just like, ooh, and like while we were going through it, I'm like, oh, this is going to end soon. I kind of want to keep going, like
Exactly.
it was making me want to keep moving forward with this. So yeah,
I say an 8 as well. I think for the same reasons. It's artwork's fantastic. I would have loved to see
yes,
it colored. Story has a great pacing. Even the slow spots don't feel like you're slowing down because you're getting a lot of good emotional stuff from He-Man and Tila. and it's really well done. And at the end of it, you're going, I want to see the next page. And
Mm-hmm.
if though we had seen the rounding out story, maybe it would have jumped it even higher for me.
Sure.
All right, so we got time for a remastering.
Yeah, I was up till about 2 in the morning on this one.
All right, let's jump to it.
Remastering their universe.
Go ahead, Sean. Introduce. What are we remastering today? This is an interesting one.
Yeah, so because of the subject of the episode today, Matt decided let's take a look at what would happen. How would you do it? This is not technically. I guess it's technically remastering the canon, but it's
Yeah.
how would you do it? 1982. You're at Mattel.
Yep.
You have these toys. What's the
Wave
story
one.
that you're going to come up with? Wave one, the 8 back figures. What
Yep.
is the story you're going to come up with to make kids? Well, what's the story that you're going to come up with for these characters,
Right.
basically,
Right.
for these figures?
Yeah, we are remastering the entire origin of the line here, folks. We've got to. Me and Sean just had a meeting with Mattel. They showed us these figures, a Battle Cat, a Grayskull, and we've got to come up with a story for him. So,
Mm-hmm.
Sean, you sound to be the better prepared one because I've just kind of got thoughts in my head. So why don't you take the lead on this one? And I think we do
Okay.
better when we're building off each other, anyways. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I had a basic brushstrokes idea, and then I was over at my buddy's place last night, and I threw it at him around midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I were going back and forth till close to 2 in the morning over how this could work. And I'm going to leave out some of the details because they weren't refined. But
Right.
I guess okay. I'm a huge fan of the idea of the the ancient technology that is part of Masters lore. And I'm a fan of the whole, the Great Wars leading
Yep.
into the line, and this is why they're kind of at a ground zero primal base to maybe start off everything. So the way that I thought of it was similar to the 1987 movie, ironically.
Okay.
I like the idea that what happens is in the Great War, they had what would be like our equivalent of a hadron collider. This
Sure.
is their like H bomb that they're going to use to end this war because it's
Sure.
gone for too long. They try to use this thing, and the thing pierces the veil of the dimensions, and that's how Skeletor comes through.
Okay.
He brings armies with him. So suddenly they're not fighting the Great War. They're fighting a twofold front of here's Skeletor and these demons. Our enemies are over here. We're getting overtaken.
Right. So first
And
they've got the infighting, and now they've also brought Skeletor as well.
So now Skeletor being who he is, and he's just bringing these legions of demons and monsters with him and all this kind of stuff. And it's stuff that has never, ever happened on Eternia before. So they're overwhelmed. They're just getting beaten. And among the soldiers on the field on that battle is a prince.
Mm-hmm.
And that prince, during this battle, is watching his friends fall. He's watching people that have trained him fall and all this stuff. And it's basically he's on the battlefield left behind after all hell has broken loose. And he's one of the few people left. It's almost like the Lone Ranger kind of a deal. He's left behind with he's thought he's dead, but no, he's just like laying there in all the rubble and everything. And so it's like Eternia has now opened itself up to a bigger problem.
Right.
And this is like from the universe. It's not just within its world. And so this prince is someone that he has been trained to do battle. He's basically a typical like warrior or a knight or whatever. And throughout like the time after this, he would be traversing Eternia, and he's basically almost like Skeletor, like we talked about. He traverses the landscape, going from village to village, and as he sees problems, he comes in and he'll fight the stuff off for these people. And it's like this legend has begun growing of there's this warrior who comes out of the night when there's screams and there's cries for help, and this warrior just shows up and he doesn't ask for anything in return, but he's here to help us, and they're building this legend of this guy who he will be there when there's help needed and stuff. And so he, like I said, he's a prince. He's not he's a warrior prince, but he's not like a barbarian. He's not like the most powerful man in the universe yet.
Okay.
So putting into play a character that never was very well defined in the original, which I feel this will help, Zodak.
Okay.
He saw that the veil got pierced. He looks at this and he's like, the power, the balance is shifted so greatly because of man having, too much power, that now the evil is taken over. So he and the goddess are both like, we need to find a way to tip the scales back. It has to be balanced again. And the goddess is like, I've heard of a legend of someone. And he's like, are you sure that this is the person who can right the balance? She's like, I think it is. And they do, like in the old Alcala. She gets into trouble,
right?
And he comes in and saves her. Because he saves her, she's like, I have something that you need to see. And she takes him, and they're talking about all of this stuff and I know I'm getting long-winded with this. I'm sorry, but so she's talking to him about why do you do what you do? Why are you doing this? And he goes, he's like, my parents died. When everything happened, my parents were taken from me. My friends were taken from me. My family was taken from me. And he's like, I should be a king right now, and I don't have a throne. And she's like, and she's like, well, why don't you just call yourself the king? He goes, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like the power, the ruling of people doesn't matter. The people are what matters. He's like, these should be my subjects, and all I want to do is make sure that they're safe. I'm trying to protect them because I couldn't protect all of the people on the battlefield that day. I need to keep going. I need to keep pushing myself. And she's like, well, what if you were given a way to do that? What if you were given power? And he's like, he looks at power in a whole different way now, because he sees power as being gentle, as being empathic, versus if I have the greatest weapon, I'm going to be the one to crush my enemies. He's not that guy. And she's trying to feed into, okay, what is this about you that would make you look at what I'm about to give you and see it in a way where it's not necessarily I'm giving you all the power to crush your foes and all that stuff. So, she mentions to him about Grayskull, and he's like, well, that's fairy tales, like in the book, like I did not intend that to happen. He's like, that's something that every child knows that story. Oh, Grayskull is the center of the universe, and good and evil reside there. Da 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 da. And she basically does the, maybe some things are based on truth. Maybe some things are maybe they're not as you think they are, but maybe they are. And she leads him, and she shows him where Grayskull has been hidden all this time. And he's just standing there like, you've got to be shitting me, like this is, he's like, this should not be here. This should not be happening and all that stuff. And I, even though I'm not the biggest fan, of the Prince Adam to He-Man in that way compared to the Barbarian, but what I like doing is saying, I see him as somebody, he's pared himself down to a very like utilitarian look. He's not wearing armor to a certain extent. He's more, yes, he's trained, he's capable, he's got his tenacity, he's strong for being young and, being a warrior. But, she hands him the sword then, and it's only half of the sword. Right. Because the whole idea with that is more not even just unlocking Grayskull, but to them it's the whole, we can't give you the full power of this because it could corrupt you completely. Sure. So he has half the sword, and then the other end of it, I don't know if it would be before or after this, that would be when Skeletor already has it somehow. So it is the whole, he's going after He-Man to join them, and then he gets all the power and it would, the corruption and all that. Sword, yep. Exactly. Yeah. because I always liked that part of it, and I felt like they never gave that its proper due in a way where it would have been a really interesting, lasting concept. Um, but yeah, she would give him the sword, and it would be, if he does the incantation, it's almost like, for lack of a better term, it's like a power up. He can
Yes.
actually he's given the ability to use a power beyond all power, which makes him the most powerful man in the universe. And she's like, you won't grow tired when it happens. You'll be able to fight armies on your own and this kind of thing. And she's like, and most of all, you'll protect the people that need it the most. And so, him having the sword, and Zodak and her kind of like looking over the situation, and they agree, yes, this needs to be done because this world will die otherwise.
Right.
And that sets the stage for, okay, now you got your He-Man, you have your Skeletor, who's been ripping through everything, and he's burning, pillaging. He doesn't even want like to be the king of Eternia or any of that.
Yeah.
For him, it's a whole different primal level of what he wants from this world. It's more
destruction and power.
Yeah. I look at it from almost like a Thanos perspective of Thanos is a driven individual, and you cannot talk him out of his goal. And this is kind of my version of Skeletor in this. And then on top of, I mean, obviously he'd have Beastman at his side, he'd have Merman at his side, and all this kind of stuff from crossing over. And either he'd find them on Eternia, and he'd be amassing the mutants. He'd be amassing the unique oddities that are his people, and they would be coming to him, and he'd be like, because he has his half of the sword, it's the whole I can grant you power, and you can fight back against those who have wronged you, and all that kind of stuff. And then I like the idea that like Man-at-Arms being someone who he's a confidant for He-Man, but he also is somebody who he's like a geek about the ancient technology. He'd almost be like Entrapta, but not like not on the spectrum or any. But he'd be the guy. He knows
Netflix
about this old stuff. Exactly. Not the Netflix Entrapta.
Not real Entrapta. So,
yeah.
No.
But he would be the one like cobbling together as much of the ancient technology as he could find, and try to like retrofit it, reverse engineer it and all that stuff, so that they can use it again to fight back against this dimensional rift and to fight back against the stuff that keeps coming through. And then Teela would also be kind of like a grease monkey with him. She would be in there, and like she'd be helping out Man-at-Arms as he needs assistance and stuff. But then she's also more than capable because I picture this being a timeline, but 5 to 7 years from the Great War to where we are in the story, and she would be more than capable of taking care of herself, growing up in that kind of a situation too, which makes her the warrior goddess, as she's dubbed and everything. And I mean, my version would be that one where there'd be a lot more apocalyptic stuff versus it being like think of the box art.
Yeah.
And all the darkness of Eternia, the fires, the brimstone. That's kind of what I want to see. And He-Man's like the lone traveler coming around, and if you're screaming for help, all of a sudden there's this battle axe to defend you, and here he is. So
Skeletor's going after the power sword. He wants the power, and He-Man's really just going to try and free Eternia. Like, his goal is just to stop Skeletor. He doesn't even necessarily want the power sword.
No.
He just wants Eternia to be free again. And
try
and find a peace.
Yeah, he looks at it as I kind of coined it as like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, in a way, where he went to war, he saw the horror of war, so when he comes back, he has to fight back, but he doesn't necessarily want to be the king of England. He wants to just know that there is a balance again, and the people can live without fear. That would be my take on He-Man in this version.
I like it. I'd watch that. Mine. It was tough. Number one, it's tough trying to reset your mind. It's tough trying to, with everything we know, everything we've experienced. It's tough to reset it. But basically, I went back. I tried to think of all the like that early Lords of Power promo artwork and really just try and look at what the original roles were. I forgot about Zodak though, as most people do.
Hmm.
Um, but
I was happy to fit him. I was like, ooh, that's a perfect place. We're good here. So.
basically, I went in my mind. I said, okay, if I was sitting there, they showed me the Lords of Power prototype figures, Castle Grayskull, kind of the general storyline. What would stand out to me? Obviously, the power, which is obvious. That stands out in every iteration, like we just talked about with the Whitman story. Everything's about power. Um, but I took it very much the I think the lords would have stuck out to me too. So you've got these lords of power, right?
Hmm.
You got Merman, Beastman, Skeletor. You got Man at Arms, Tila, He Man.
Hmm.
Um, so basically, what I was thinking is you set up Eternia as a again, as obviously said after Great Wars, that was a prevalent theme there. Something really bad happened to this world,
Hmm.
and to me, it is now fractured. So you got all these different regions of Eternia, all with their own ruler or lord. Um, so you've got kind of the you've got like this dark part of Eternia where it's very much like this was where the worst battles of the war were fought. There's radiation and there's volcanoes and like that's the
Hmm.
really bad place. And obviously that's where Skeletor rules. Because he's one of the few that can survive there. Like regular everyday people cannot survive in this region.
Hmm.
Um, so that's Skeletors. Then you've got like these deep, dense forest region, and that's Beastman has taken over, and
Hmm.
that's where a lot of the food comes from because it's one of the few areas on this war torn planet that's still very much fertile and growing. But Beastman
Hmm.
rules over that with an iron fist, and he doesn't let anything out he doesn't want to. If he wants to starve your village, he will because what are you gonna do? He really controls the crops and everything.
Hmm.
Merman obviously would control the ocean, the waterways. So you have to fight against him or get into a deal with him. So you got
Hmm.
Skeletor, the Lord of Destruction, who just death and blood and whatever he wants, he takes. And then you
Yeah.
got Beastman controlling the all the agriculture and Merman controlling the water sources and the waterways for trading and everything else, and they've all kind of banded together in an unholy alliance.
Hmm.
And then you've got like the more civilized part, you'd say, which used to be the capital city of Eternia. Um, and that's where there's a lot of technology, but again, a lot of time has passed. We've forgotten how to use a lot of that. The vehicles and stuff, if they're working pretty well and everything. Um, but yeah, it's kind of that same world that we've seen in the Alcala mini comics, in the Whitman story. There's a lot of
Hmm.
forgotten technology, and then that region is ruled over by Tila, the warrior goddess, and really playing up the more the sorceress end of the spectrum, Tila, as she
Hmm.
was presented early on. Um, and basically, the Skeletor, Beastman, and Merman are trying to take over that last remaining part. Like she's the only leader who shows benevolence to her people, and they work together. But they can't sustain themselves on their land alone. So they
Hmm.
have to, and but she doesn't like what that Beastman and Merman have sided with Skeletor and are working with him. Um, and he's out there, he's trying to grab all the power he can, all the villages, any sort of weaponry, technology. That's what Skeletor is after, and she knows he's
Hmm.
building up to trying to be the only ruler, and so that's led to strained relations with Beastman and Merman in their areas. So that's slowly suffocating the capital city. They can't sustain themselves. So then she reaches out, trying to find warriors to combat Skeletor, and that's when you could have the same way. She's traveling around and she meets He-Man and Man at Arms, and I'm putting
Mm-hmm.
them as contemporaries. They're like you and me. They're buddies. They grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
They are approximately the same age. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Taking Man at Arms into he's younger, but he's smart. He gets technology, same as you. He gets technology. He knows how to work it. He knows how to repair the bits he's found. And
Mm-hmm.
so when she comes across them, and He-Man is very much just, I know I said about it earlier, but he's very much just that strong guy from the jungle. He's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's a specimen of a man, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a great warrior, and I would say he does save her when she's out and about, and she ends up taking them back to the capital city. Man at Arms starts diving deep into all the technology that's buried in the catacombs of the royal palace, and you know, you could have it down the road. He finds the Talon fighter and gets that working again, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, this is it. This is where, this is how we fight back. This is how we start getting out there. And He-Man's just that good guy from Brooklyn. He's got the
Mm-hmm.
morals. He's got the values, and very much like you, she gives she whatever way you want to do it. I hadn't decided through technology or magic. She enhances his abilities. You could do it like with the harnesses, like they did in the early stories. You could do it with
Yep.
there are the two halves of the power sword. Tila has one in the capital city, and Skeletor has the other one. And that's basically it. The dark and the light halves. When whatever ended the Great War and almost killed the entire population, split the power sword into two pieces. One was lost in the dark part of Eternia, and the other one is in the light, in the capital city.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got that. They've got the light half. Skeletor's got the dark half. And yeah, Skeletor's end game is to find Castle Grayskull and control it. So that's why he's made this alliance with Beastman and Merman to starve the capital city so that he can overthrow it and get the other half. And then and then he can unlock Grayskull, and he thinks that will give him all the power he needs to rule everything.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I even toyed with the idea of having Skeletor be created by the Great Wars. Have like you, kind of like you, have him back then, but like he was leading part of the forces, and he was thought to have died in, the Great. Like you said, it's probably like a nuclear bomb or something that ends it. But it
Mm-hmm.
turns out that it transformed him into Skeletor, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
he can survive over there.
I
And
like that.
and He-Man's with it with the magical help of the goddess. He's able to go over into Skeletor's region, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't stay there long. Like in Man Arms got all his technology. Like basically, you make your group of masters, your heroic warriors, whatever you want to call them, and like they're the best of the best, and they can go over there and do battle. But like nothing can live there except the most foul beings on Eternia. You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so, and that's basically my conflict. It's all these lords, all these regions fighting, and as the story goes on, you could bring it further, find out that well, this is only this part of Eternia, and we got other parts and other lords, or you could just bring them in as warriors, and it still leaves room for that expansion of the story
Mm-hmm.
as they're trying to stop Skeletor from gaining the power sword. They're trying to find Grayskull, and I'd go very episodic like that too.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just it's a testament to the story how many different ways you can take this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I mean, you went a whole nother way. I went this way. Whitman went that way. DC Information went
Mm-hmm.
that way. And I think it really speaks to the staying power of He-Man, that it's got such a good foundation
Mm-hmm.
that you can boil it back and take it down all these paths, and I think still have a winning story almost every time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll always go to what was in my head when I was a kid playing with them. And that's like, I mean, everybody knows the Filmation take on it and everything, and 2000X, followed up with that. But at the end of the day, for me, it's always going to have this, like, they're barely surviving. They are
Yes.
fighting every day of their lives to make the next day happen, And even as a kid, I got that vibe from how the toys looked,
Yes.
from how the artwork looked. So I like the idea, you're putting these characters in this situation where there isn't hope.
Right.
And it's like, the minute He-Man shows up, it's like it's the equivalent of like
He's
Superman
yep.
flying out of the blue, and he's holding out his hand to you to get you out of the danger that you're in. But then he'll go back and take care of it too. And it's like, I want to see a little. I don't want He-Man to be Superman either, though. No. Like that was the main thing about film.
But he is that symbol of hope, especially in these early stories. He was always the guy who's like, there's no future, there's just death, destruction, eventually Skeletor will take over the planet. That is the early Masters of the Universe, very much. Because everything distills back to that point when you go back this early in the line. And I love a lot of the stuff that came later. You know that. I love Filmation. That'll be my go-to every time. But there is an appeal to this early stuff, too. And I think between Whitman and us doing ours, I think we boiled it down to that. It's the last hope of humanity. It's not even what happens when the bomb drops, it's what happens after. Is there any hope of getting back to a civilization that's worth living in? And He-Man's that warrior that goes, yes, we can do this. We band together. We work for freedom. We show empathy and humanity and compassion. Again, He-Man, he's the most powerful man in the universe because he is everything that a man should be. And that's not just muscles. That's the morals, the convictions, doing the right thing no matter what. That's what the most powerful is.
Yeah, and like I forgot even because I went through almost all of them, but Stratos. Even. I forgot to even throw him in there too. And the thing I was gonna say, since he's one of the first that he's a little bit more unique looking than He-Man is very much just a typical guy. Stratos has a whole different deal with him, and I like the idea that the reason he's with He-Man is Avion was under attack and He-Man showed up. And it's the whole, he managed to help them. And it's the whole, you help my people, I got your back if you got mine sort of thing. And that's like the first alliance he created before everything happened.
I would say that
everything happened.
I would say that in my story too, that would probably be their first allegiance was to Avion. And that could be their way out. Like they go up against Beastman and Merman and they fail. They can't defeat them. They're too powerful. So then, they end up in Avion, and they help save them from an attack, and then Stratos is like, well, we have, these mountain glaciers where we get our water from, and we grow crops up here, and they start a partnership, and I like that, this just came to me, and they circumvent that. It's not even that they beat Beastman and Merman, it's that they find another way, and they start forming their alliances, and, and then... You could get the Andrenids in there with Buzz-Off later, and they get, they're all bringing their, like I said, it's all about getting the power. It's all about making alliances and trying to build the better forces, and so they're able to find another way. So then it doesn't matter about Beastman and Merman, and then that anchors them, and that solidifies their alliance with Skeletor, and cementing those forces.
And the podcast can go 5 more hours of us get out about this.
All right. I gotta take off. So we'll hold questions. We'll get them next time, guys.
All right. Sounds good.
But I hope you all enjoyed the episode. One last plea. Yeah, we'll go plea. My daughters right now, they are selling Girl Scout cookies. I'm going to drop a link down below if any of our listeners happen to be interested in some Girl Scout cookies. They do ship, so follow that link down below. They are delicious, yummy, and you'll be helping the girls out a lot. This is the #1 source of income for the troops. for a lot of the stuff they do all year, and with everything going on, they cannot do cookie booths. If you haven't tried to get, they got a new one this year, Toastier. It's a French toast flavored cookie. It's delicious.
Oh,
Coffee or hot cocoa. So yeah, guys, please check out that link if you can, or if you're one of the guys in the area near me, shoot me a PM and we can work something out. We do appreciate it. Like I said, they're really trying to. Most of the events and activities they do as a troop, the funds come from this, and not being able to have cookie booths this year is really going to limit what we can sell. So check that out if you can. Check out Battle Ram blog. It's great stuff. Take a deeper look at those pages. Read all the captions. There's notes in the sidelines. It's great. And please like, share, subscribe, ring that bell. We got some live stuff coming. I'll do a formal announcement on that later this week. Shawnee, you got anything?
nope, I'm good to go.
All right. We thank you guys. We appreciate it. Let us know what you think about our remastering. Check out Whitman Publishing. And until next time.
Until next time.